Most people question everything about their financial life except the one thing that matters most: the structure underneath it. They question their boss, their salary, the economy, but they never stop to ask why their income disappears the moment they stop showing up. What if the real problem was never how much you earn, but how your money is built to work in the first place? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you might start looking at your own paycheck completely differently. For years, the idea of success seemed simple. Earn more, get promoted, watch the number in your bank account grow. It felt responsible, it felt mature, but underneath that steady climb was a quiet, uncomfortable truth. The moment the work stopped, so did the money. That truth became impossible to ignore after watching two very different people go through two very different years. One was a friend who did everything right. Good education, long hours, total loyalty to his company. Then a sudden restructuring let him go. Within weeks, the anxiety was visible. Not because he lacked skill or couldn't find new work, but because his entire life had been built on a single income stream that depended completely on him showing up every day. When that stream paused, everything around it started to shake. At the same time, another friend was living a quieter story. She didn't have the biggest salary or the most impressive title, but for years, she had been building small things in the background. A digital product built from her expertise, a consulting process that ran partly on autopilot, a small rental property bringing in steady cash. Nothing flashy, just steady construction. When she took a full month off, her income kept coming in. That contrast raised an uncomfortable question. Was the goal to build freedom, or just to make dependency more comfortable? A salary isn't the enemy here. It pays bills, it creates stability, it opens doors. But when it's the only foundation you have, it becomes a single point of failure. Your survival gets tied directly to your time, and your energy becomes the only engine driving your income. Systems change that equation. A system is something you build once and keep improving. Income that continues even when your direct effort pauses. This isn't about quitting your job tomorrow or chasing overnight wealth. It's about a shift in thinking, from earning to engineering, from trading hours to building assets that last. There's a ceiling that almost nobody notices. It's not written into any contract or mentioned in a performance review. It's invisible, but it's very real. And it's built entirely out of how we're taught to think about money. This kind of thinking trains you to chase compensation instead of control, negotiation instead of creation, short-term upgrades instead of long-term design. And because it feels so normal, it never feels dangerous. Consider two co-workers at the same company. One was sharp, efficient, and reliable, the kind of person who negotiated a raise every single year and knew his exact market value. His philosophy was simple. As long as the number kept going up, he was winning. The other co-worker took a completely different approach. When their company rolled out a new internal system, most employees just learned to use it. She studied how it actually worked, noticed where teams were struggling with it, documented fixes, and built simple guides for other departments. That documentation eventually became a company-wide training framework, and later, a consulting opportunity outside the company altogether. Same tool, same environment, two completely different outcomes. One person improved his salary trajectory. The other built leverage that existed independently of any single job. That's the trap of thinking purely in terms of salary. It keeps your growth tied to someone else's approval. Raises depend on budgets you don't control. Promotions depend on politics you can't predict. And even when you're excelling, you're still operating entirely inside someone else's structure, with someone else's limits. Worse, as income rises, lifestyle tends to rise right alongside it. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more obligations. The safety margin doesn't actually widen, it just shifts upward. A senior manager living what looked like an aspirational life once admitted something telling. If his job disappeared, his entire structure would collapse with it. His expenses had grown to match his income, not his independence. His pressure had grown faster than his freedom. Once you notice this pattern, you can't unsee it. You start looking at your daily work differently. Spotting repeated problems, recognizing skills that could be packaged or scaled instead of just performed over and over. And that shift in awareness is where real change begins, because the ceiling was never really about money. It was about architecture. And architecture can be redesigned. That redesign starts with a very simple, often overlooked idea: leverage. Not the financial kind everyone thinks of first, but leverage as the ability to create impact without constantly multiplying your effort to match it, doing something once and benefiting from it again and again. Most of us are taught the opposite. If you want better results, just work harder, take on more, push further. But effort has limits. There are only so many hours in a day, and energy runs out. A fitness coach built his entire income around one-on-one sessions. More clients meant more money, but it also meant total exhaustion. And the moment he couldn't show up physically, his income dropped straight to zero. Instead of piling on more clients, he started recording short videos explaining techniques he kept repeating in person. Those videos slowly turned into a structured program, then a simple online course. It didn't replace his coaching overnight, but it reduced how dependent he was on being physically present every single day. He didn't get ahead by working harder. He got ahead by creating something that worked without him. The clue to finding leverage is usually hiding in plain sight: repetition. If you're answering the same questions or solving the same problem again and again, that's a signal. It means there's something worth documenting, standardizing, or automating. This isn't limited to digital products either. A teacher who reuses and refines lesson plans instead of rebuilding them from scratch every year is creating leverage. A salesperson who builds a repeatable follow-up process instead of improvising every call is creating leverage. Even inside a corporate job, one project manager who personally solved every single problem stayed constantly overwhelmed, while another who built checklists and shared systems watched emergencies quietly decline. Her workload shrank not because she worked harder, but because she designed better. And leadership started noticing she wasn't just solving problems, she was preventing them. Leverage compounds quietly. It rarely produces something dramatic right away. But every system you build sharpens your ability to think structurally, and every asset you create chips away slightly at your dependence on personal effort. That's exactly why most people avoid building it. The reward is delayed, while a raise feels immediate, but quiet growth tends to be the kind that lasts. There's also a difference between owning your time and owning your value, and it's a distinction most people never make. Time ownership means deciding when you work. Value ownership means your work keeps generating results long after you've stopped actively doing it. A freelance graphic designer left his corporate job expecting freedom, only to realize 6 months later that he'd simply traded one boss for 10 clients. Every project still demanded fresh hours, and when he took a break, his income slowed immediately. So he studied the patterns across his clients. Most startups needed the same basic things: pitch decks, social templates, brand kits, and instead of rebuilding those from zero each time, he packaged them into standardized bundles that could be lightly customized. His expertise stopped being locked inside hourly contracts. It became an asset. This shift matters because most of us are trained to get better at doing the work, not to turn that work into something scalable. A software engineer known for solving the toughest technical problems on her team realized she'd become the bottleneck. Everyone depended on her directly, so she documented her troubleshooting process, built diagnostic guides, and recorded walkthrough videos. She feared this would make her replaceable. Instead, it made her more valuable because she'd multiplied the team's overall capability instead of just her own output. Turning knowledge into something reusable is what separates temporary income from a lasting asset, and building that first system doesn't require anything dramatic. A woman working in human resources kept getting asked by friends for resume help. After one too many free sessions, she said something simple: "I keep answering the same questions." That single sentence became the seed of a system. She built a checklist, recorded a short video, and created a downloadable template. Her first month brought in less than $200. But what she'd really built was infrastructure. Something that no longer required trading an hour for every person she helped. Every functioning system starts with three basic pieces: a specific problem, a repeatable solution, and a way to deliver it. The problem has to be clear enough to act on. The solution has to be explainable in simple steps. And the delivery method matters far less than most people assume. It just has to work consistently. Most people stall here because they think they need perfect branding or advanced tools before they can start. They don't. They need usefulness, and a version one that's good enough to launch and improve. But building the system is only half the equation. What happens after the excitement fades matters just as much. A man working in finance set out to build a small investment education platform on the side. The first month was full of energy, but engagement stayed low, and momentum quickly faded. Frustrated, he assumed the idea just wasn't good enough. What he was actually running into was a mismatch in expectations. A salary rewards you immediately and predictably, but systems operate on delayed feedback. So he changed his measure of success from revenue to consistency, committing to publish one solid piece of content every single week, no exceptions. Some weeks felt discouraging. But after 6 months, his audience started growing steadily, and within a year, sponsors were reaching out, and a course was selling on its own. The turning point wasn't a viral moment, it was quiet, repeated discipline. That discipline is what separates ideas that fade from systems that actually mature. Iteration takes time, and abandoning something too early means never gathering enough information to improve it. Protecting even one focused hour a day, and defending it seriously, adds up to hundreds of hours of directed effort over a year, more than enough to build something real. Beyond consistency, there's a deeper test of whether a system is genuinely independent. What happens if you disappear for 30 days completely? No emails, no oversight, no quick fixes. A cafe owner had built a beloved local business over 15 years, and he was there every single day, personally overseeing every detail. A health scare forced him to step away for a month, and within 2 weeks, the business started falling apart. Orders were mismanaged, staff were unsure of decisions, vendors called him directly for approval. The cafe had loyal customers and a strong brand, but it didn't have independence. So he spent nearly a year documenting every process, training a manager, and setting clear boundaries for decisions. The next time he stepped away, the business ran smoothly without him. That was the moment it became a real system rather than just a well-run job. Designing something that survives your absence comes down to 4 things: clarity about your process, documentation others can follow, delegation that distributes the work, and automation that removes repetitive tasks altogether. You don't need all 4 in place at once, but the direction has to point that way. And when you finally get there, something shifts internally too. Decisions start coming from strength instead of urgency, because the system is no longer entirely dependent on you being present every second. All of this requires patience most people underestimate. We tend to overestimate what a few impulsive months can achieve and underestimate what several focused years can build. A manufacturer of specialized industrial components once explained his growth with 2 words: "I just stayed." While competitors chased trends and pivoted constantly, he spent over a decade improving one narrow product line, reinvesting in better equipment and stronger supplier relationships. Growth looked slow next to flashier competitors, but after 15 years, his reliability became his real advantage. When conditions got difficult, clients chose him because he was predictable, not because he was the fastest. That kind of staying power tends to get abandoned right before it starts to pay off. A project gaining traction, a tool becoming profitable after small improvements, an audience that finally starts to trust you. Most systems don't fail because the idea was flawed. They fail because someone gave up just before momentum kicked in. Trust, in particular, compounds slowly but powerfully. People who consistently trust what you deliver keep coming back, and that kind of credibility can't be rushed the way attention can. Ultimately, all of this points to something bigger than tactics, an identity shift. You can learn every strategy and study every model, but if you still see yourself primarily as someone who earns by following instructions, you'll keep drifting back into familiar patterns. The real turning point is internal. The moment you stop asking, "What should I do next?" and start asking, "What am I actually building?" An operations manager at a logistics company spent years efficiently executing other people's plans. until he sat through a meeting where an executive laid out a 5-year roadmap for the company and realized he'd never created one for his own life. That single realization changed how he approached his job. Every challenge became research. Every recurring problem became data. Eventually, he and a developer friend built a simple prototype addressing a bottleneck he'd noticed repeatedly in the industry. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was grounded in real experience, and within 2 years it had grown into a subscription platform used by several companies. He hadn't simply worked harder. He'd started seeing himself differently, not just as an employee, but as someone capable of designing something of his own. That's really the core lesson running through all of this. Freedom isn't something you earn in small increments through a bigger paycheck. It's something you engineer deliberately through structure. None of this is about quitting impulsively or chasing overnight success. It's about noticing where repetition signals opportunity, understanding how documentation creates its independence, and recognizing that consistency, more than talent, is what actually sustains anything worth building. A salary can be a solid starting point. It funds your first experiments and gives you room to breathe. But it was never meant to be the final architecture of your financial life. So if any part of this resonated with you, don't let it end as just an idea. Pick one skill you already use every day. Identify one problem you understand deeply because you've lived it. Sketch out one simple way to solve it, and protect just 1 hour this week to start shaping it into something real. It doesn't need to be polished, and it doesn't need to replace your income right away. It just needs to exist. 3 months from now, you could still be thinking about it. Or you could already be refining a working version. A year from now, you could be negotiating the same small raises or watching something you built begin to grow on its own. 5 years from now, your life could look exactly the same as it does today. Or it could be supported by layers of things you chose to build deliberately. The difference was never luck. It was always architecture, and that architecture starts with the very next decision you make.